Now back to a Richard French live special tribute on hallowed ground, the 150th commemoration of the Battle of Gettysburg.
If fighting had been fierce and bloody on the first 2 days of the battle, the bloodbath of the third day would turn the dark brown soil of this Pennsylvania town darker still.
The cowards and shirkers are long gone. Every man here knows his duty. They would make this charge even without an officer to lead them. They know that for many of them, this will be their last charge. They're all willing to make the supreme sacrifice to achieve victory here.
The most casualties in a single day during the Civil War happened at Antietam. But Gettysburg eclipsed that battle not only in numbers, but in the scope of defeat for the Confederate Army. At the end of the day, this was the Valley of Death. Pickett's charge had failed. Some, they were torn limb from limb by cannon fire that could take out a dozen soldiers with a single devastating blast. At the end of the third day, the Union had made sacrifices, heavy ones, but they had also achieved the victory that would alter the course of the war.
General Lee had tried to attack the Union troops on both of their flanks, the left flank and the right flank. Neither of those had worked, so his final plan was to go right at the center of the Union Army on Cemetery Ridge. Today, that spot is commemorated with the High Watermark Monument within Gettysburg National Military Park, and about 15,000 soldiers set out from this ridge, Seminary Ridge, just about a half a mile south of our position here at the museum, and marched across the fields separating Seminary Ridge from Cemetery Ridge to take on the Union Army at its center, and that charge failed miserably, resulting in a Union victory.
There's over 7,000 bodies in the area. The town population is only 2,400 people. It's really, really hard to get a grasp of what that must have been like. There is not only the bodies, there's wreckage, there's material, there's equipment strewn everywhere. There's over 1,000 horses and mules killed in the battle. Homes are destroyed. Crops are destroyed. It's in the middle of the growing season here. Most of this is farm country. It's generally a scene of despair, and it's going to take years for Gettysburg to look like it did on June 30th, 1863.
Well, see, just over this way, the South had just been defeated in Pickett's charge. And so there were all sorts of bodies out there on the battlefield, hundreds of them, from the field of Pickett's charge. And this would all have been open field at the time, like I said. And so they'd be carrying the wounded back off the field. Back behind this line is all the hospital sites. And so just an enormous job.
While the three-day Battle of Gettysburg claimed lives in the 67th, the toll might have been even higher if it were not for improvised hospitals set up in farmhouses, barns, and tents on sites around the battlefield. One busy makeshift hospital was at the Lutheran Seminary just behind Union lines.
People think a lot about where was medicine at that time. They knew quite a bit about amputation and surgery. There was ether and chloroform, so there was anesthesia. What they didn't understand was cleanliness and germ theory. So you can see that the assistant is administering ether or some kind of anesthesia, and the surgeon is about to begin an amputation.
Now these men that survived to the end of the third day, they must have been totally exhausted, first of all, but elated. They'd finally stopped the Southern attack. And their losses were not that heavy because they're fighting behind barricades. So the most dangerous thing for these men is going back and forth to the front lines. But the field down there was just covered with dead Confederates. So these guys were rejoicing, I think, that they had won the battle. They'd stopped Robert E. Lee here in Pennsylvania.
Later, the words of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, honoring those who lived and died in a small Pennsylvania farm town.